Good afternoon to everyone. This is a very interesting session and it's about to begin. This is about the future of smoking in Europe, about regulation, data generation, and most importantly about the cancer plan. We have the Beating Cancer Plan. I would like to welcome Karl Fagerstrom, that he's going to give us his talk on harm reduction, Endgame, and target achieved. And I'm going to present the SCOHRE position on the Beat Cancer Plan. And we have eminent panelists, Dr. Bueno, Dr. Boukovinas, and Dr. Wiberg, to discuss proposals on these policies and how we can improve our position in Europe and suggest more innovative changes regarding cancer plan. And I welcome Karl Fagerstrom to give his presentation.
My name is Karl Fagerstrom, and I'm very happy to be invited to present in this conference. This talk will be about Sweden and the harm reduction and the end game, and actually the target is achieved in Sweden. First, I show you my disclosures that are relevant for this speech. So the tobacco endgame, many countries have adopted an endgame definition. For Sweden, like many other countries, it includes a smoking prevalence rate of less than 5%. In the very last Eurobarometer study on prevalence of daily tobacco smoking, we can see in Sweden the red bar to the far left, where we are at 4%, while really no other country comes very close. Norway is at 9%. So Sweden is the first country, at least in the European Union and maybe throughout the industrial world, that has reached the end game. And interesting, if we look at young adults from 15 to 24 years of age, we see that the smoking prevalence in Norway and Sweden is almost disappearing. Norway is at 2% and Sweden is at 3%. So this is very good news. As these people are growing up, the smoking prevalence should go down, and hopefully the young ones that appear on the scene will not start smoking as much as have been done before. So has this low smoking rate led to less disease and mortality due to tobacco? That is what is important, of course. Here we can see data from WHO Global Report. This is from 2012, and death rates per 100,000 attributable to tobacco. And we have the European Union states. Sweden is not included here. We have Sweden besides here. And if we look at men 60 to 69 years, we see that the median death for lung cancer is 220 in the European Union, while it's 87, much lower in Sweden. And the second lowest country is on 91. The same is true for oral cancer and all cardiovascular. If we look at all causes, we see that there are 550 dying that's the average for the European Union, while Sweden has 222, and the second next best country, 378. So clearly, Sweden is also an outlier when it comes to tobacco-related mortality here. If we look at another data set, which comes from the Global Burden of Disease study, and this is also a little more recent from 2019, we can see that if we look at men, total population here, for the EU, the average is 128. For the Sweden, it's 72, and the next lowest in the European Union, 86. If we go to a narrower age bracket, 45 to 49, the numbers are 65 for the EU average, 19 for Sweden, and 33 for the next best country. So I would say clearly the smoking attributable mortality in Sweden is low and very much lower than in the other countries. It has been some calculations that is men in the EU have had the same tobacco habits as those we have in Sweden. There would have been a staggering 355,000 deaths fewer per year. So that's big numbers, very hard to harvest with control of any other public health factor. On this slide, which is quite a busy one, but it's an interesting one because here countries are rank ordered according to their score on tobacco control. Yeah, it's called the TCS, Tobacco Control Score. And we can see that United Kingdom is in the top, France, Ireland. Where is Sweden? Sweden is on the 15th place. So with that, we can say that Sweden certainly doesn't have any extraordinary strong and hard tobacco control. So how come then that we have such a low smoking prevalence? What is the answer to that? To me, it's actually these products that are called snus. They have largely replaced smoking. And that we can see on this picture where we have, on these curves, we have cigarettes that grew up till 1970s, 80s when it started to come down, and because probably snus was coming up. So we have had snus and more modern nicotine pouches that has largely displaced smoking. If we look at the right side of this slide, we see what is happening in Norway, where the men 16 to 24 years of age, we see the same, that smoking has gone down and snus has gone up. The same in women, smoking down, snus up, and smoking is very much down. And also the total, the yellow color, the total use of tobacco has gone down considerably in women, a little less, but although downwards in men also. So that should also be good news. The tobacco prevalence in Sweden is actually, in this study, it was 5%. In the Eurobarometer, which I just showed you, it was 4%. 5% of the men is smoking, but 20% of the men is using smokeless tobacco, snus. E-cigarettes is hardly used in Sweden. The prevalence of tobacco use is 25%. So that is pretty much what is the average in the European Union. But despite that, the harmful effects that can be attributed to tobacco is much lower in Sweden, probably because this is true what the former commissioner of the FDA said, that nicotine, while highly addictive, is delivered through products on a continuum of risk, and that in order to successfully address cigarette smoking, we have to be aware of the current adult smokers who still seek nicotine so they can get it from alternative and less harmful sources. FDA has also awarded Swedish snus with a modified risk tobacco product ordinance, which means that it is less harmful than other tobacco products, and this is also the only product that has got this statement from federal Food and Drug Administration. And you can read here that the evidence that it is healthier or less harmful, one should say, than cigarettes goes for a number of diseases: mouth cancer, heart disease, lung cancer, etc. So in summary, combustible products like cigarettes, they can be replaced. And non-combustible products like Swedish snus is significantly less harmful. And today we have oral nicotine pouches with tobacco that are thought to be even less harmful. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was an excellent presentation by Professor Fagerstrom, as always to the point, and stating very crucial data regarding the harm reduction politics and the effects in long-term basis. And of course, that applies to snus, and we're waiting to see the results for the remaining non-combustible products, as he said. So I would also like to carry on with my presentation, and we can have the discussion at the end. These are my disclosures. We discussed, and Professor Fagerstrom has shown what has happened the previous years all over the globe, but in Europe as well. And you can see that we have lost about 175 million people because of smoking. And this is very much sad for the developing countries, but even more for developed countries. Now, what happens in Europe? You can see the prevalence of smoking in males is 38%, in female 19%, and in both sexes around 28%. And what happens with lung cancer risk? You can see at the very end that between 2000 and 2010, both male smokers and female smokers have a relative risk of about 20 times greater, 25 times greater than non-smokers. And of course, we know that there are short and long-term effects of smoking cessation. Within hours, the carbon monoxide levels fall. Within days, we have a better taste and smell. Within 1 or 2 months, the chronic bronchitis caused by smoking is improved. And if there is mild to moderate COPD, breathing is improved. Within 4 years, there is a substantial reduction in risk for cardiovascular disease and a 35% reduction for reinfarction in patients who already suffered from a heart attack. At 5 years, cervical cancer risk also falls to that of never smokers. At around 9 years, lung cancer risk reduction becomes apparent. And at 10 to 15 years, laryngeal cancer risk is also reduced to 60%, and lung cancer risk at 70% at 20 years. And at 20 years, actually, the non-smoker has an equivalent risk to a non-smoker. Now, what we have achieved all these years, you can see here what happened in the US. There was an exacerbation of the use of cigarettes in the early 50s. But then at this period here, the first data from epidemiologists came linking smoking to a worse health regarding cardiovascular events and cancer. And it was in 1964 that the first official report linked smoking, tobacco smoking, to deaths from cancer and heart disease. And in 1970, the US banned cigarette ads on radio and television. Now, you can see here the increasing rate of lung cancer reaching a peak of 55 to 100,000 men. Then the first measures were taken, taxation, information of the public health, expanding and giving information to the public about the lethal effects of smoking. And you can see here that there is a drop in the use of combustible smoking products in the conventional tobacco products, and a small but significant decrease in the rate of lung cancer death. And going back to 2010, still from 55 per 100,000 men to 30 per 100,000 men. Still, again, a high percentage of lung cancer, despite a reduction to a significant but not eliminating the number of cigarettes used per adult per day. You can see here it's about 15 cigarettes sold per adult per day. Now, what happened in USA also applied even in more countries that they have a better public health system, like Norway. Again, you can see here in Norway that there was an increase in deaths that was in parallel with the increase of the numbers of used cigarettes in Norway, though much lower than in USA, leading to, let's say, around 25 to 30 male lung cancers per 100,000. So no matter how we see it, when we have an increased number of cigarettes, we have an increase in lung cancer deaths. And when there are measures taken against the use of combustible cigarettes, then we get a fall in lung cancer deaths. This is another example here from Poland, where again, there were regulatory legislation regarding taxation of tobacco and regarding public information on the lethal effects. And you can see here the deaths and the number of cigarettes used. And you can see here that it may be effective in reducing the number of the use of the cigarettes down here. However, still in Poland, you get 100 cancers per 100,000 males. And a less, but again, significant number, 60 per 100,000 for the UK, despite an important reduction of the use of tobacco smoking. Now, of course, we talk about lung cancer because 80% of lung cancers are related to smoking. However, we have mouth cancer, we have esophagus cancer, kidney, cervix, liver, bladder, pancreas, stomach, and acute myeloid leukemia. All of these are related to the use of smoking. And in any case, you can see that when we take measures, these are data from the cancer research in UK, when we take an act against the use of smoking cigarettes, then we have a decline, and this needs to be kept alive, because if we forget to do so, then there are some instances, like here around 90s, where not only we had a reduction, a decline, but we had an increase, particularly in the male population, of the use of smoke of cigarettes, of combustible cigarettes. That shows that we have to be in constant alert, in constant information, and constantly to adjust our policies, trying to reduce the number, of people, the number of smoking cigarettes, and trying to improve public health through smoking cessation. And this is again from UK, that they have very good data on that. And you can see here over the years that still there was a percentage of cancer, in 40% in women, 40 in women, 60 in men per 100,000. Still there is a 20% of the adult population smoking, despite all the measures on taxation and information and bans on combustible tobacco cigarettes, and even using packets that show all the adverse effects of smoking on public health. So what about Europe's Beating Cancer Plan? It was introduced in February 2020, and it was a political commitment to leave no stone unturned in the fight against cancer. However, tobacco reduction, although already presented and introduced in countries like Sweden or UK, was neglected. And we know that still smoking continues to be the leading cause of preventable cancer, with 27% of all cancers attributed to it. So that was our duty to motivate all the administrations interfering with the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan to start thinking about a harm reduction policy to further reduce the percentage of adults smoking. So the plan did not discuss at all about the e-cigarettes and the experience of UK, for example, in e-cigarettes, and of course the novel non-combustible products, although they appear to have lower risk of exposure to toxicants leading to cancer and cardiovascular diseases. Now, we know a lot of data, toxicological data, but also clinical data, that there is a reduced risk, and this will have a potential benefit to public health compared to conventional cigarettes. And of course, these are a promising alternative and harm reduction agents for smokers that fail or are unwilling to quit smoking. So we supported the plan's aim to prioritize protecting young people from smoking and protecting young people from the use of electronic cigarettes. But this is something that we have to see as an alternative for smokers to prevent the cancer, to prevent also cardiovascular disease. We also know that there are no conclusive evidence by large-scale trials or registries that the use of electronic cigarettes could lead to increased use and tobacco smoking rates in adolescents. And a recent registry from France supports this notion that does not, the use of electronic cigarettes is experimental only. It does not introduce young people to the use of tobacco, conventional tobacco products. The plan also proposes measures such as banning non-tobacco flavors for e-liquids. This, of course, makes these products, the use of flavored e-liquids, more attractive, for example, for a smoker to use it. But however, this may make it more attractive for adolescents. For this reason, and because there is a lot of uncertainty on that, we support the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, and we believe that there should be a regulatory protection in the use of these products from adolescents to refrain distribution of flavored e-liquids to adolescents and make them strictly available to adult smokers. Now, Royal College of Physicians has a lot of tradition and has used and practiced the use of e-cigarettes in smoking cessation programs. They have shown and they believe that e-cigarettes are unlikely to exceed the 5% of the risk of smoking, and that should be an alternative for smokers who are unwilling to quit smoking. Also, in Netherlands, there is a registry showing that the heated tobacco products and its use has reduced exposure to harmful compounds to around 10 to 24 lower than using combustible products. Now, public health has embraced the harm reduction policy and has introduced vaping as a means to quit smoking and reduce the risk of cancer. Also, they have seen in smoking cessation, well-organized smoking cessation programs, well-organized smoking cessation clinics as well, that the use of a licensed medicine like NRTs or varenicline in combination with a vaping product facilitates the efficacy of these programs and achieves highest quit rates from the smokers, around 70%. And it is a reality that in real life, around 27% of people use a vaping product in an effort to quit, whereas 15% use NRTs, showing that pharmacological-driven smoking cessation programs are not very attractive for smokers. So I don't want to show more on that. Professor Fagerstrom has shown what happened to Sweden, that the rate has been fallen to 5%. That is the task provided by the European Union. And this has happened because there was a switch from the combustible tobacco products to snus. Also, the German Cancer Aid also supports that even if we increase taxes, if we increase awareness campaigns, then the 5% target posed by the European Union seems unlikely for Germany, where the starting point is 19% for men and 13% for women, and the mean is 25% for Europe. So what we believe in SCOHRE, we believe that the Commission's proposal should incorporate the experience of harm reduction policies from within, but also outside Europe, to improve the rates of smoking cessation and thus prohibit the lethal consequences of smoking. We believe that the uptake of harm reduction policies in Europe's Beating Cancer program is a new start and will contribute to healthier Europeans in the future. Harm reduction should be considered as a third pillar for tobacco control, together with smoking cessation, smoking prevention, and affiliation with all the approved smoking cessation regimes. Thank you for your attention. So I would like here to ask all the participants to provide us with their opinion on these two presentations and their proposals to further improve or their disagreement. If there is a disagreement, this is the place and the time to hear it and to incorporate it. And I may ask Dr. Bueno for his opinion.
Good morning or good afternoon. I agree with you with your presentation about how can we improve or how can we help people to quit smoking. I'm in Spain. We would like to implement THR products as a third pillar, together smoking prevention and cessation. But the problem, as you will see next in my presentation, is that some politicians and some media press are against THR products, and now scientists and the evidence say that the tobacco harm reduction products are good and we can use to quit smoking. But there's a lot of people outside the scientific program or the scientific people that they don't want to hear us. and they want to say, no, this we have to keep young people or teenagers out of these products, but that statement is against scientific evidence. We need to explain people or our politicians the importance of tobacco harm reduction products, and a good attempt and a good use of that products could be helpful for us to quit smoking, people, and avoid a lot of deaths in Europe.
Thank you, Dr. Bueno. I totally agree that we should not be authoritative, but we should be flexible, and we should be open-minded, and check every patient, or even those that are not patients but are just smokers, and listen to their needs. And that is the reason I believe that there was a good effect in UK, because they had very well organized smoking cessation clinic, where these were the medical doctors were escorted and helped by psychologists as well, because this is a combined problem from, of course, the natural addiction from nicotine, but also the psychological addiction from the smoking behavior. And this should go hand by hand in order to have an effect and to achieve a smoking cessation to its individual. So I can ask Dr. Boukovinas to give his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also thanks the organizing committee for inviting me. I used to be the president of Hellenic Medical Oncology Society for 4 years, and I have my own ideas by caring people with cancer. So I will discuss only with my experience with cancer patients, and especially head and neck and lung cancer. I agree on the subject that harm reduction is an alternative for smoking cessation. This is for the already known habitants of smoking. But I disagree on the complete safety of this measurement. I mean, we need more data concerning not only toxicology, but also some biological pathways of cancer, especially epigenetic changes through methylation, and of course, how to have lower rates of nitrosamines in e-cigarettes in general. And of course, we don't know the exact amount of impact of vaporing or other e-cigarettes on stress hormones that play an important role in the genesis of cancer. So we need more data on the complete safety of such products in order to give better consultations to our patients, and not only patients, as you mentioned, because during the future, I think 10 to 20 years, we will see a transformation of healthcare to the health, because we need to have more sophisticated tools in order to keep young generations healthy and not providing them health care. The second one is that we have a great gap of smoking habits throughout Europe. It's different in Northern Europe, it's different in Southern Europe. We see in Southern Europe an unacceptably high initiation of early tobacco smoking in adolescents. And we see that females 11 to 16 years old are equally the same, they smoke equally the same amount as 16 to 20. So we need more targeted approaches to the young generation, since we all of us strongly believe that the behavior of smoking starts and growing up through adolescence. So we need more data on that from the young people, because everybody who knows history could put on a table the story of X-ray in 1920s, when X-rays was used as panacea for every disease in the United States, and they sold it as a panacea drug. And also we remember the advertisement of doctors smoking during 50s and 60s as pediatricians. So we need more data on the implications of e-cigarettes to adolescents, not to transform them as a usual smoking habits, but also to avoid smoking or not to continue on e-cigarettes, as we don't know the long-term implications of such products. So I will stay on that. I have more on the second round.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boukovinas. I think your points were very well taken. We need more data. Of course, we know that there are 95% less toxicants, but however, what happens with the less 5%? Are these 5%, the remaining 5% inducing carcinogenesis? This is something that has to be proven or not proven by appropriate research. And I would like to ask Dr. Wiberg for his comment.
Thank you very much. Let me first correct you. I am not a doctor. I am the CEO of a nicotine pouch company, and I'm also a tobacco harm reduction. And I would like to, first of all, thank everybody for inviting me. And Professor Karl Fagerstrom put down the numbers. Sweden and Norway and even Iceland are already there. We have reached the WHO and the BECA target of 5% daily smokers. There has been by Dr. Boukovinas mentioning, and also yourself, Doctor, we need more data. I would like to, if it's suitable now, to show some slides about big data, the Swedish experience, and in particular in connection with the European Beating Cancer Plan. I'm Bengt, CEO of Stink-Free AB, an inventor and a patent holder of a new pouch technology. I'm also the founder of EU for Snus Consumer Crowd Movement. We have thousands of members and followers from over 100 countries, and more than 80% of us are former smokers who has managed to quit smoking for good with either original snus or modern tobacco-free nicotine pouches. And the subject today is the Swedish experience of snus, big data, massive data, and European Beating Cancer Plan. I was very happy Dr. Fagerstrom just showed this picture. It shows the smoking prevalence among 15 to 24 years old in the European Union, plus Norway and the UK. And this is fresh data from the Eurobarometer 2021. If we look down to the left, you find in orange, the smoking prevalence of these young adults in Sweden is down to 3%. But look to the far left, this is incredible. Norway, where snus was introduced only some 20 years ago, is even lower smoking prevalence than Sweden. So what is the Swedish experience? It has been said by Dr. Fagerstrom, I think, the tobacco consumption in Sweden is the same as the European Union average. But we have the lowest tobacco mortality as well as the lowest cancer rates in the European Union. So why? Mainly because Swedes have replaced smoking with snus or modern oral nicotine pouches. And I would also like to mention, which is not in this diagram, Iceland have same figures, I think, as Sweden and Norway. Let's change. I'd like to connect now with what has been said before. And I've studied the BECA, the European Beating Cancer Plan, carefully. And I'd like to bring out 4 quotes from the BECA plan. It starts by saying that about 40% of cancers in the EU are preventable, such as cancers caused by smoking. And as we go further into the document, suddenly we have a quote saying, tobacco consumption continues to be the leading cause of preventable cancers. Snus is a tobacco product. So it's widening. We go from smoking, which everybody knows is the most dangerous thing you can do. Takes the most lives on the planet, even more than COVID-19, if I'm correct. And as we go further, the BECA plan says, through rigorous enforcement, including stricter rules on novel products. So we are going from smoking to tobacco to anything containing nicotine. That's what I read in this report. Let's continue. Another quote, Europe's Beating Cancer Plan will use the remarkable potential of new technologies and scientific progress. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a look at relative risk. This is a recent study, one of several, trying to plot the relative risk of different nicotine products in relation to smoking, where smoking in this case has 100% risk. If we look to the far right, to the very lowest relative risk as compared to smoking, we do find new technologies, science. We have, for example, heat-not-burn devices, electronic cigarettes, and non-tobacco pouches, nicotine pouches. And for those who doesn't know how snus or nicotine pouches looks like, this is like a tea bag that you place on your upper or lower lip. Snus is not a novel product. It's been around in Sweden for some 200 years. But the evidence, the epidemiological evidence is overwhelming. And what we see now in Norway is they are repeating the Swedish experience to become the Norwegian experience, but they are doing this in a much, much shorter time, as you will see. So let's have a look at some big data in regards to risks of snus. In 2017, the Global Burden of Disease study, which is the biggest metadata epidemiological study in the world, was published in the Lancet. And it concludes that Swedish type of snus has no higher relative risk than 1.0 for any health outcome. And this study, the GBD study, covers 26 years of published science worldwide. And for those people who are perhaps not so familiar with relative risk, I brought along a quote from Professor Stefan Willers from the Swedish Medical Journal in 2018. It says, a recent large epidemiological study could not demonstrate any increased risk of disease with Swedish snus. There is more big data. The Karolinska Institute released in May 2020. They did a study on, perhaps I should say that Sweden has enormous registers of persons' health, cancer registry, and we even have cohorts going back more than 30 years. And the conclusion was that compared to never snus use, ever snus user was not associated with oral cancer. And this study covered 418,000 Swedish male participants, which correspond to 9.2 million person years. And not shown in this slide is the fact that normal snus use, which is 4 cans or less per week, each one contained 20 pouches, is related to 35% lower risk of getting oral cancer than non-users of snus. This is amazing statistics. So my conclusions is that the Beka plan sadly misses out on pointing out the huge difference in risk between combustible and non-combustible nicotine product. And as you said before, Dr. Ikonomidis, we have the evidence in Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and why not copy this or consider it instead of inventing the wheel again, so to say. And also, like it is suggested here, to regulate lower risk alternatives rigorously. So I finished by saying that I believe the Swedish experience should be available to all Europeans and acknowledged, and also acknowledge that nicotine in itself is not what causing cancer. If this was included more in the report, I think the results would be much better. Thank you very much.
That was an excellent presentation by Mr. Wiberg. And I think it has supported furthermore the evidence by Professor Fagerstrom, showing that, for example, nicotine itself is not the problem. It is something else, but not nicotine itself, as snus basically contains nicotine, and it is the tobacco not elaborated, I suppose, or not a lot elaborated for the user. And it's not that nicotine has to be accused for the effects, though there are some data that there are vasoactive effects of nicotine in endothelial function, and there may be some effect on increasing heart rate and blood pressure. So, however, in the long term, what it has shown is that switching from tobacco to another product that is non-combustible, we may have a very, very important improvement. What most of us are afraid is someone to start using snus from the beginning. or any other product that contains nicotine for pleasure, and what would be the effect on these newly introduced subjects to the use of nicotine, how this will evolve in terms of any kind of disease, maybe vascular, as we know that there are vascular effects of nicotine, or not. But on the other hand, we know that using harm reduction and preventing a smoker to continue smoking has a very good, a strong beneficial effect on health and on health economics as well. So let's go for the second round and ask Dr. Bueno for his comments on the Mr. Wiberg's comments and on the rest, Dr. Boukovinas' comments and so on.
It has been a nice presentation. Obviously, everybody knows now that nicotine is not the problem. Nicotine is the addictive substance that have tobacco to keep people going on the consumption of tobacco. We know, and cardiologists, pneumologists, everybody knows that the problem is combustion. It's not the nicotine. And that's the real reason why in Sweden they not have a high risk of lung cancer and oral cancer, but because that is the real question of the real problem. Nicotine is not who cause cancer. Nicotine is only the addictive substance, and combustion with a traditional cigarette is the big problem, not only in cancer, that we are talking here about cancer, but in heart attack and the problem with COPD, lung problems.
Dr. Boukovinas?
It was a nice presentation. I really enjoyed all of this data coming from Northern Europe. The situation is reminds me of the use the previous years, the supporters of liberation of opioid or not, in order to not legalize the use of opioid. It has some parallel meanings. And if we put it in order, we can say, do you have a better substitute for cessation of smoking for the already smokers? Do we have? We see that during the implementation of WHO Directiva on 2005, we see a decrease during the following 10 years of the incidence of some cancers or tobacco or related diseases. But then we had a plateau. So the implementation of all these measurements of regulations of taxation, of ban of advertisements, of all of this brought the situation in a plateau where there is no more decrease in the use of tobacco or tobacco products. So we need an open-minded, as you said before, approach that can use the new technology, but at the same time make much more eminent toxicological and biological analysis of the new products. And for me, it's very, very important to have a better and stricter regulations for adolescents, because the problem is the adolescents, not the 35 or 40 years old male who smokes a lot because of different socio-economic factors that we cannot find a solution. We need to concentrate on young people who are not smokers, and by using different tobacco products can transform them in smokers of every type of product, because okay, nicotine, it's not a main problem for originating of lung cancer, But in the users of nicotine products, we saw a higher levels of nitrosamines in their urines. So we have to do all the exact experiments, and I totally agree with the proposal for one of our audience for a kind of how they say an observatory for the novel products.
Yeah, we have some questions, so I will ask Mr. Wiberg for a comment, and I will read the questions so we can discuss around the questions as well. Mr. Wiberg, in the second round?
Yes. Could I pick a question of my choosing? Maybe introduce some news to the rest of the world. The question was from George Mihas, and the question is, how can we exploit registries to document harm from different products? Can we establish registries for healthy tobacco users? And I don't know if you know this, but in Sweden, we have these huge big data spanning back so many years. It's the patient register, the cancer register, the mortality register, and we are introducing in Sweden, as the first country in the world, there will be a tobacco cohort registered by all of Sweden's dentists. And what is so special about this? Because already today, the Folktandvården, the biggest dental sort of government chain in Sweden, is registering whether the dental patient is using snus, or if the person is smoking, or if the person is a non-tobacco users. Now, I think from 2022, we will have a complete such tobacco cohort from the Swedish dental community. And what does this mean? It means that we will be able to differentiate, we should be, between the harms of smoking and the harms of snus, and compare this to non-use. So this is very exciting, and I'd be glad to share if any of you want to know more about this project. But it's ongoing right now, and I try to follow it as careful as I can.
Okay, that's great news, and that answers partly the question that do we need more observational studies on smoking habit, included though e-cigarettes and novel tobacco products, for example, like non-combustible smoking products, heated not burn products. And do we need to establish a European observatory probably, or local observatory for these novel products, and have some data on behavior along ages, adolescents, middle age, higher age, between smokers and non-smokers as well. That's an answer. Probably we need such. We need also probably per disease in cardiac patients, in oncology patients as well. So we need to take some action. And there is another question. It seems that the relative risk of combustible products is much smaller. Does this justify their use? Is it just to negate their use? From Mrs. Nicole. So who would like to answer that? Dr. Wiberg, yes, let us know.
Not a doctor.
Yeah, sorry.
I wish. I think looking for those who saw the slides of Professor Fagerstrom, and I happen to have the same slide. Looking at Norway, there's a lot of talk about the problem is adolescents, young people, and all nicotine products, in my opinion, should have an age limit. It's not goodies, it's not sweets. But looking back at Norway, in 2000, the year 2000, there were 30% daily smoking among 16 to 24-year-old Norwegian women in just 20 years. And very much thanks to the introduction of snus, that figure is now down to 1%. Dr. Fagerstrom also mentioned the latest Eurobarometer figures stating that 15 to 24-year-olds in Europe are now down to smoking prevalence down to 2% in Norway and 3% of Sweden. I am not a doctor, I'm not a professor, but to me at least, this proves that we don't have a high uptake of new nicotine users among the young adults. But we do have in the world, as been mentioned before, 1.1 billion adult daily smokers. So by restricting access to all nicotine products for those under the legal age, we can do a lot of good for all the adults who are smoking. I hope.
Yeah, this is, I think, something that we all agree that there have to be strict rules, regulatory rules for the use of nicotine products under the age of 18. And also, there was also another question which has been answered, that we need registered or we need an observatory to see how things are going on in each country. For example, since there was a circulation of a novel product, what happened, who is using it, how much is this used, was there any effect, any change in, let's say, asthma exacerbation, for example. There were some data from Asia, for example, that when electronic cigarettes were initially introduced, there were some exacerbation in the asthma. Is this incidental? Is this something that has an effect through time? What's going on with this? So observatory and registers are needed. And there is also one more question for Sweden, because Sweden has the data again. Any explanation why the Swedish women do not follow the good results on low cancer incidence as the male population?
May I answer?
Yes, of course.
To the best of my ability. In Sweden, we are one of the few countries in the world where smoking prevalence among women is higher than the men's. Another speaker today at this excellent forum listed that about 83% of the world's men's smokers are men, while only 17% are women. An acquaintance of mine, Professor Brad Rudel from United States, he once told me that the only really fantastic thing that Swedish men can teach Swedish women is their choice of nicotine products. Swedish men use snus at the rate, adult men use snus at the rate of 20%, while women use snus in a much lesser degree. But as we see these new products, these tobacco-free nicotine pouches, statistics also show that many women who are smoking are trying to switch to these products based on sales records of the biggest snus and nicotine pouch seller in Northern Europe.
Actually, can I ask you, do you have any data if there is any percent of naive snus users that they have started snus and they were not prior smokers?
It is, I do have, but I do not have it right now. But the number of new users is much less than the number of adult users. Dr. Lars Ramström published a report et al. In 2016 showing that 86% of Swedish men and women who were snus users are former smokers. And this study involving some 66,000 Swedish men and women showed that after 6 years, I think it was 6 or 8 years, 1/3 of these snus using persons had quit all nicotine use. So I think we do have the statistics in Sweden indicating that the number of young people who are have not been smoking, who start with these products, is not a very high figure.
I think there's another question for Dr. Boukovinas, stating that oncology is one specialty that has to deal most with the detrimental effects of smoking. How would you feel if cancer patients may benefit from harm reduction, but they do not have the chance? Mr. Tom Best.
It's true. Yeah, it's true that, yes, I think this is an excellent question. Usually we don't have a specific regulation or consultation for harm reduction or tobacco harm reduction in cancer patients. We always consult them to leave tobacco, and of course there is not a good, a friendly environment of medical support for that, as you mentioned before. Harm reduction could be an option if the patient realizes the real chance of getting out of cancer by stopping totally, entirely tobacco, any product, not only consumable smoking. So I think this is an excellent proposal, and we could do it in the future. This could be comprised in a future consultation index from Europe Beating Cancer Plan.
Yes, that is actually how we should think. We have the same question in our own clinic, whereas a person with a heart attack, he's smoking, and I say, you have to quit smoking. And I say, well, I tried once and did not do anything. So how should I advise him? Okay, carry on smoking. I have to have an alternative, something that would reduce at least his exposure. And it is indeed true for us in cardiology. Carbon monoxide is one of the toxic ingredients that activate platelets and favors thrombosis. So getting the list of carbon monoxide from a non-combustible product helps a lot the future thrombotic risk. So we have to be open-minded.
Exactly.
Do we have, Dr. Bueno, any other comment that you would like to add?
Yes, a presentation about what is happening now in Spain with regulation of smoking, and what the platform for tobacco harm reduction, as I am the spokesman, wants to give to the European beating plan. And if you want, I can share my presentation with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that the problem now is which should be the focus of the fight against smoking. And obviously, all of you say the focus is on traditional cigarette. But now we are talking about new products. What is happening in Spain and in Europe with a European cancer beating plan is that, and almost rest of the world, the focus is not against smoking on traditional cigarette. The focus is on new products, and that is the problem, because we have to the traditional cigarette. We have not to beat the new products. Where new products, new tobacco harm reduction products must be tested, and we have now evidence, and we have a lot of data, as we have seen in your presentations, that is 95% less harmful than traditional cigarette. If traditional combustion cigarette is the worst thing and cause cancer, cause heart attack, cause lung problem disease, why could not use new products that we know now and all the society says that are less harmful to beat and to reduce all those deaths in the world. In Spain, the enterprise, the cigarette enterprise, sell 4,000 million of cigarettes each year. In Spain, we have around 8 million of smoking consumers, and we have around 50,000 to 60,000 deaths from smoking. What is killing people in Spain and in Europe? Traditional cigarette, not tobacco harm reduction products, no. What is killing people is traditional cigarette. There's no disease. Some media have tried to say that tobacco harm reduction products have a lot of disease, as EVALI or lipoid pneumonia, but there's no disease from those products. We think that some anti-smoking organizations are following the focus of the problem. That must be the combustion cigarette. And we have a lot of examples trying to equiparate, trying to say that traditional cigarette and novel products are the same. That is confused to people, because a smoker could think, okay, if traditional cigarette and ends are the same, we have to. I don't want to keep the smoking, or I don't want to switch. But that is a problem, and that problem is against scientific evidence. Now, what the logic thinkings and talks. The debate should be open around the new products in which the following is taken into account. Why? First of all currently available evidence. If the evidence is for everybody, why some people, they don't want to see that evidence? And second, we have international follow-up of those countries, such as UK, Japan, New Zealand, USA, France, Iceland, and Norway, Sweden. THR products are intended exclusive for the adult smoker. We have to think about that. And if those countries that are incorporating the third pillar about tobacco harm reduction, and they could reduce the problems from smoking, why the rest of the country we cannot look at those countries and say, okay, we're going to do the same. Europe need to go on the example as UK. What is going to happen probably in Spain next year? Probably our politicians with the influx from WHO, the World Health Organization, our politicians, they want to reopen the anti-smoking law. First of all, doing a media program with a lot of ads saying that traditional cigarettes and the THR products are the same. They want the establishment of high taxes, ban on flavors, ban on online sales, and ban on public places with another one. Probably the third THR products make market collapse in Spain. As I say before, first of all, trying to invent new disease as lethal pneumonia or campaigns as in Spain. I'm going to show you the ads in the media. And we have in Spain a refusal of the current government and tobacco control authorities to dialogue with the stakeholders. Our platform have tried to speak with our politicians. We have do a congress, we have do a lot of webinars trying to show the evidence that we have and trying to say that tobacco harm reduction products are not the unique thing to stop smoking, but it's the third pillar. We try to work together, but some people, they don't want to work with us. This is the ads that we have seen saying that traditional cigarettes and tobacco harm reduction products are the same. I want to say that the importance of the recent article by the 15 presidents of the Society of Nicotine and Tobacco Products. They say that action on THR requires a balanced approach. And second, we are talking a lot of time about children and teenagers, but the defense of children by a theoretical and unproven gateway risk cannot justify morally or ethical the sacrifice of the health and lives for millions of adult smokers. If traditional cigarette, combustional cigarette is killing people, why cannot switch to another product that now the evidence say that it cannot kill anybody. But the World Health Organization decides tobacco harm reduction can wait until 2023. Why? Why they don't want to talk? If scientific programs and scientific debate is the base to improve the health, the public health and the health in citizens. But the WHO decides not to talk. They want to only to say, okay, we talk after, far away, or never. But we don't know why they don't want to talk. I think they don't want to talk because the evidence is so strong that they have fear to say that tobacco harm reduction is a good system to stop smoking or to switch smoke. Public health in Spain, actually, the harassment and coercion of the authority to the doctors and scientists who defend THR. I don't know why that fear from some authorities to speak and to talk about this problem. And I want to show and to share our experience in the Spanish Virtual Congress.
Dr. Bueno, if you can do that in 1 minute, because there is a following roundtable discussion, so we have only 1 minute. So if you could conclude your presentation.
Yes, I only want to say that we for our platform, we want to say that we think it's very important to create an observatory. We think it's very important to share all the evidence and to say to the BECA that all the scientific evidence now need to be exposed to improve the health of our citizens in Europe. Thank you very much.
I think all points raised here are well taken. This is the aim of SCOHRE, and we would like Dr. Boukovinas as an oncologist, Dr. Bueno, and all of you and Mr. Wiberg to share his experience and his data, and we need more data in order to support the harm reduction policy and to organize forums and to present in these forums our ideas, if these are in European Parliament committees or in various health committees. Anyone that has access to such committees, it would be very nice to invite SCOHRE and present these points that are well taken, are recorded, and are going to be included in our future documents. And to this end, I would like to thank you all for this lively and constructive discussion, the constructive comments. And this is actually the purpose of such a summit, to listen to different opinions, to listen to objections. And these objections are very well taken because usually are based on research, and to listen to future perspectives for research. So I would like to thank you all and conclude this meeting and go to our next roundtable discussion regarding Latin American experts, also discussing the problems that they face in tobacco prevention, smoking cessation, and harm reduction policies in Latin American countries. Thanks a lot, and going to the next roundtable discussion.